is ratify members to various advisory boards. We move that from consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I guess we need a motion to discuss. Yes.
Motion to discuss.
There's no such thing.
All right, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
You brought
I'm
this-
sorry, I didn't hear the motion in second.
Well, there's no, I don't even know if
I
there's,
made a motion.
you made a motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Approve.
To
I
approve.
second
Second, okay. Commissioner McBoy, you moved it. Would you like to start?
Yes, a while back, we changed our method of working with the volunteer boards. What we did the first several years that I was here, and I think we've done for some time before that, was a lengthy and by the commissioners sometimes considered painful process where anybody who was interested in being on a board would put in an application, then we'd schedule interviews, people would come, and we would interview one after another whoever was interested in the different boards. It was a lengthy process. Sometimes we were here till pretty late, sometimes we did 2 days in a row of it, but I found in the process that we had quite a bit of exchange with people who lived in the community. People who sometimes had been here a long time, sometimes came recently. They learned things about us, we learned things about them, and we all of the commissioners got to see all of the candidates. And then we voted after we'd interviewed all of them. And to me, that felt like a very interactive process. It encouraged interaction between residents and the commission. It was a very transparent process, it seemed to me. We changed that now to each of us gets to appoint somebody. So if you're interested in being on a board, you got to contact City Hall, get your application in, or call one of us. And if it's our turn to appoint, then one of us will appoint, and the rest of us are then in the position of saying, no, I'm not voting for that. Which is kind of awkward. You don't really want to vote against somebody, and you don't know anything about them, because you haven't heard them come and present. And so I did not approve of the change in process. I still think that the former process, I'm willing to put in the commitment of that time to have that interaction with the community. I think it's worth it. My concern here was, at least for the Planning and Zoning Board, which is a pretty influential board it actually has some legal status and so on, pretty influential in shaping what our community looks like. I didn't find any backup, there's just a name. So am I gonna, and I see that we have a lot of folks who I believe speak Italian. Now I don't know, but Maratta sounds to me like an Italian name. I'm gonna sit up here and say no to somebody with an Italian name with an audience like this? I don't think that's a good idea. I won't get out here alive.
Especially not sitting next to me.
Exactly. I'll never get a glass of red wine from the mayor ever again. So my point is I don't want to vote yay or nay on somebody who the only thing I know about them is their name.
Right.
And I don't think you should be in a position as the public. You should, even if you don't come, you should be able to look up on your computer and read, okay, here are the various candidates, and you can call us up and say, that guy Joe Schmo, I don't think he's the guy, I think it's Jill that you want. Or whatever, and put some input in. So I have a concern about the process and a very big concern that there was no backup, so I'm not in any position to make an intelligent decision.
Has there been, Pam, backup, the other applications other than this week's?
No,
Okay.
it's been the policy, we just have not,
I think that we should have the policy to include the applications. in
we
the
absolutely, we
I mean, I
absolutely-
would look for consensus on them, because it's a
Oh, I
no-brainer.
don't even think you need a consensus, you're right, you're absolutely right, this is a no-brainer, and why it was never done right from the get-go, I don't know, but absolutely in the future, we will include those applicants, their applications.
Okay, now has the other thing too, and I just, in reference to what you said about it, one of the advantages to doing the boards this way has been that when we did it in the past, it was only once a year. And a lot of the boards had vacancies, and then we couldn't fill them until that one time a year when those meetings were held. Now we can fill the boards throughout the course of the year as an opening on any board becomes available to bring the viability back to it, is number one. The other thing is that, I don't know about myself, but I'll just poll my fellow commissioners. Have all of you met and interviewed candidates for advisory boards?
Yes.
Okay. Have all of you made appointments to advisory boards?
Yes.
You have, okay.
Yeah. And if I might,
Sure.
I remember when we changed the process that was one of the concerns, that we did the interviews, I think in May or June or something or other typically, and so sometimes a board would sit for a long time with a missing person or persons, and that, I completely agree, that's a concern that needs to be addressed, but I think can be addressed. You don't have to only do the interviews once a year. You can do the interviews on an as-needed basis. If there's, you accumulate 2 or 3 vacancies, you say, hey, let's put out a notice that we need some folks for it. And I think the interview process is a separate issue from the timing of the interview. The timing to be able to fill the things, we should keep them filled, I agree. But let's do it with an interview process where I think what we've learned is that even though we may come from very diverse outlooks and agree or not agree on various things, as we all hear somebody present and hear multiple people, many of our votes were actually unanimous because we had the information. But it was a stronger process. We learned, they learned, and it was more open and I think more encouraging of people to participate. So I would suggest that we might want to reconsider that with a rotating time.
I just think that we've had a hard time filling advisory boards, and
That's
another issue of it. I mean, this all came up because of any other reason other than to keep the boards full and keep them going, and keep, and keep staffing them. That was really the main reason. And I stand behind all of the appointments that are in the backup, because I believe they all were mine. And
Well, I'll use it. It's good.
Bias there.
no, I thought that the backup material would be there, and I was out of town, so I didn't see the backup material ahead of time. So I didn't look for that. But Commissioner Cerny?
Thank you, Mayor. I did see when we got our information, and I knew that there was different appointments that were coming up. So I found that out in some of our backup material that was not in this, but we knew these were coming up. I know Mr. Vasquez, and I've talked to him, and I also know I talked to Anthony Marotta. And I had some discussion with him, probably about an hour at a time. I didn't really know him. So I've spent some time to try to get to know him as well. I think he'd be a good member of the board. But I think if we had enough notice of who appointments we're proposing, would give the rest of the commission some time to make a phone call on our own and have some discussion. And if we had any concerns, maybe we could bring it up at this time.
I'm fine with all of it, as long as we can keep it moving, keep the boards full,
Yeah.
and keep the engagement of it. I'm for whatever types of adjustments you want to make, it's fine. I just want to keep our boards producing and utilize our people in our community as best I can. We have everyone from someone who's working in the neighborhood to maybe a newer resident who's very excited and you want to put that energy to work, and then you've got someone who's been here for a while, retired, serviceman, woman, a great representation, the people of what we're all about here in the city. You know what I mean? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I absolutely agree. Let's get the backup material. But the other thing I would do is ask each of us, when we make a decision to appoint somebody, to look at the applicant and say, look, here are the phone numbers for the other 4 commissioners. I want you to go out and seek them out and spend a few minutes with them. Okay, rather than us having to seek them out. If they want to be on the board.
But that defeats the whole purpose of changing the process. Then go back to the original process if you want to do that again. I mean, the whole thing is to make it effective. If you want to send the applications, if you want to put it before all of the commissioners when an appointment is made, so that the commissioners can review and then bring it before the commission, I think that's viable. If you want to look at the applications and assess them. I mean, these were all 3 people I didn't know prior to this. Sometimes the meeting, I know because we had met at that other meeting.
I wasn't suggesting it'd be mandatory, but it'd be a suggestion that, please reach out to the
Well, we
others.
can't control that. I don't want to legislate something that we can't control.
Well, the other thing too is, just like vendors or anybody that wants to do business with the city that we're gonna take action on,
Right.
I think it would be, as a courtesy, I think they should come to these meetings to be present when we're gonna vote on them. How many of these applicants are here tonight?
But again, they're on the consent agenda. So that's another discussion. Do you want them on the consent agenda or as an item agenda?
You
For everyone to vote for.
Well, okay, those are my 2 cents worth, and, let's not drag it on. It's no process that we've experienced in the past, or even the one that we're doing now is a perfect process.
Right.
But, I guess we can keep talking about it, and, over time, maybe we'll refine a little bit more. So, Matt, do we have any blue cards?
Commissioner Amoroso?
And I just wanted to make a comment. I meet with Sabina on a regular basis when I come for my regular meetings and talk to her about what board application she has. It's our job to actually, talk to her and see what she's got in the file and who's applying. Because a lot of times we recommend people to apply and you assume they have and they didn't. It might not be our appointment. I can tell you that there's multiple times where, you know, there's appointments that need to be made now, and the commissioners have not made their appointments. So I just urge you to get with Sabina, look at the applicants she has, and make your appointments. There's 2 vacancies on the CRA board right now, and one has been there for a while, and the appointment was not made. So I urge you to get with Sabina and make sure that, you know, when you're up for an appointment, that you're actually looking at what she's got as far as applicants and getting those appointments in.
These were my final appointments, as the way the board is sitting right now, just for the record. I made my appointments. Okay, reports. Public comment, Ms. Sharp? Do we have a motion? I guess we do. Okay.
Loretta Sharp, 1311 South Conway. Well, I have been on boards, and I totally agree with Commissioner McFoy. All the boards do not have to be interviewed at the same time. All of the boards don't expire at the same time. So if you had 4 meetings a year, 4 meetings, and you looked at those board members, it would be quick. You would see them, you'd all get a chance to talk to them, you'd get them answered, but I'm not saying you should not appoint these members tonight. I think you should appoint these members tonight, but I think you should look again at the way that you appoint board members. We out here are just as interested in who you appoint as you 5 sitting up there.
Yeah.
So if it's going to be transparent for you, let it be transparent for us. And I used to come, even when I wasn't on a board, and I would sit in there and I'd listen to what they said. I didn't always, in my mind, choose the person you chose, but I got the reason why you chose it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that, if it's not this, you know, once a year, whatever, we just add it to the agenda as, you know, as boards 4 times a year or whatever. I mean, I could have that conversation, but.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think some sort of, I don't know whether it needs to be 4 or
I say
3
we-
or 2 or 1, whatever it is, but something that doesn't let them go for too long. And I think
Yeah.
Ms. Sharp makes a good point that if you do it more often, then the meetings won't be as long because you probably won't have as many to do. I
Yeah.
would sort of, I mean, I would be happy to, to take Ms. Sharp's encouragement that we vote for these, except that I don't have any information. So I would be basically voting, you know, like I say, on the niceness of the name, which is a very nice name, but, and I do know Jason, I think. So, but other than that, I don't have any backup, so.
Did you have backup did you meet with the city manager for your meeting this week? Did you ask him that question?
No, I assume the backup would be and because of the point that if this should be something that everybody gets to see the information.
No, I understand what I'm
The
saying,
public-
but you
I did
personally
not
couldn't
see it.
vote on it because you didn't,
I don't have anything to vote on. I don't have any contact.
But we've never had backup, is what we heard tonight.
we've never had backup,
Have we
this is the
voted how
first
many
time.
times?
I remember reading things in PDF files.
Pam says we never had backup.
I don't remember, but I don't know.
We've never had a Pam.
No, if I could just give a little bit of history on this. The process when it was developed, and we had lengthy work sessions on this and back and forth. The process that the commission actually added at the last minute to the ordinance on the process was they wanted that opportunity as a whole to ratify, not approve, but they chose the word to say ratify any one of the elected officials' appointment. So that is what we're here tonight to do, because those elected officials whose appointments are making this recommendation, they've already gone through the process, the interview, the screening, and we're just bringing it tonight as that ratification process. Certainly your concerns are well taken, that you don't know what their background is. Again, this is a ratification process that the commission themselves had requested. What was happening is, because of the older process, there were so many resignations or people who wished to not seek reappointment that at what point several boards could not function because we were down 22 vacancies. After even 4 special meetings to interview and to make selections, it was overwhelming and it definitely was not serving the city at its best. And so this new process came about, and I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of history on how we got where we are today.
Commissioner McVoy and then Commissioner Amoroso, and we'll look back to that.
I don't have my Webster's handy, but for me, the difference between whether I'm ratifying or approving is unimportant. It's if I'm being asked to vote on something, I want some basis to do so, and I think the public should have that basis. So it should be there for all to see. That's my grumble about it, and again, I would vote for maybe slightly more cumbersome, but a more public, transparent process where we all hear all the candidates and go for it that way.
Commissioner Amoroso?
My concern would be, when did the commissioner read his backup? Because if this is truly a concern, then it should have been addressed. That information could have been given to him prior to tonight. You're wasting a lot of people's time, my time, for something that could have been answered prior to the meeting, and then those questions would have been answered.
The
Commissioner
reason for
McVoy?
backup is that it needs to be available to everybody, not just me.
I agree with
Commissioner
something.
Amoroso?
I
You're not
agree
gonna-
with something should be in the backup.
Right. I would just urge everyone, if you have a concern about something, when you have your meetings earlier in the week, to make sure that if you have an issue with something, that you get that information to staff so that they can fix the situation. Because if you can't vote for something because you didn't have the information and you had a meeting with staff where you could have asked that question to and gotten that information so you would be able to vote on it. If this was a question about these three people, that we're voting on tonight, whether or not to ratify these three people to the office. We're not here tonight to vote on changing the rules. We can put that on another, you can add that item to an agenda. We're here to just ratify these three people. And if you needed the information to just ratify those three people, you could have had it before this point. I think that's what Commissioner Amoroso was saying.
Yes.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Nay, for the reasons previously stated.
Okay, motion carries 4-1.